When Haruto Amakawa was forced apart with his childhood friend Ayase Miharu years ago, he promised they would meet again, a promise sealed with the childhood vow of marriage. Now, after years of hard work, Haruto has returned to their city, determined to reunite. But his arrival is met with unexpected complications and a sudden twist of fate that catapults him and his friends into an alternate, perilous world. With the arrival of the moving truck, Ayase breaks into tears, seeing her best friend leave. Ayase Miharu was Haruto Amakawa's childhood friend. They lived in apartments next to each other and grew up together until Haruto's parents divorced, forcing them to part ways. Even before being separated, they were already very special to each other. Before he left, Haruto promised he'd see her again, while the girl swore that the two of them would get married one day. Years later, Haruto worked hard to get accepted into a prestigious school in the city where they both lived. His father finally granted him permission to return on the condition that he took on a part-time job to support himself. After all, the young man needed money to cover his expenses. Looking around, he spotted a girl and immediately recognized her as Miharu. Just as he was about to call out to her, a guy named Takahisa approached her, as they had planned to do something together. When he was about to put his arm around her, another girl named Satsuki showed up, grumbling that he had come there with her. So the three of them left together. Haruto stayed behind but managed a small smile, accepting the situation. Soon, the trio arrived at a spot where Aki and Masato were waiting for them. Satsuki commented on how much they had grown, and Masato responded by saying that the girl had become even more beautiful, making Aki nervous and Satsuki beam with happiness. They were all gathered to celebrate having passed another year in school. However, on that very day, the five of them were transported to an alternate world. In the process, Aisha, sensing something strange, quickly alerted Haruto. The rest of the group was lost in this bizarre universe, having no idea where they had ended up. To make matters worse, there was no phone signal. Suddenly, a huge man with a sword approached them. Meanwhile, Haruto was heading southeast, guided by Aisha. Along the way, he encountered a strange magical cloud and decided to check it out. In the middle of the mist, he found a pink cell phone. In another part of that world, at a camp filled with armed men, the newly arrived teens were thrown into a cell with several others, except for Miharu, who was taken away by a man in a top hat. She tried to communicate with him, but he spoke a different language. Aki screamed for her friend, but a soldier whipped the bars to silence her. In the midst of all this, Haruto noticed smoke in the distance and made his way towards it. It was the location where the group from Earth had been taken, and as soon as the guards noticed a stranger approaching, one of them whistled to alert the others. They quickly dropped the tarps over the cages to hide the imprisoned children, just as Haruto arrived, searching for the person who had dropped the phone he had found. The man in the top hat, who seemed to be the leader of the soldiers, claimed he had never seen the phone in his life. Assessing the situation, Haruto knew that picking a fight under these circumstances wouldn't be in his favor, so he apologized and turned to leave. However, Aki cried out for help in Japanese, which caught Haruto's attention. The leader of the group remarked that his new merchandise was a bit noisy, but the stranger responded that the people who had just spoken were the ones he was looking for and asked what was going on there. The leader was surprised that this boy could speak the prisoner's language and ordered his men to kill him. As the soldiers drew their weapons and moved to surround Haruto, he quickly realized they were well organized and accustomed to fighting as a unit. The leader remarked that the boy had mistaken courage for recklessness, but Haruto showed no signs of fear despite being outnumbered. On the contrary, he lunged at one of his opponents, who managed to defend himself and counterattack with photon bullet magic. While fighting off other enemies, Haruto reflected on his plan to take the leader hostage to force the others into negotiating, but it wasn't going to be easy. Realizing he had no other choice, he drew his swords and took down two enemies in front of him. Seeing the intruder closing in, the mage soldier hurled a fireball at him, believing he'd hit his target. But Haruto emerged from the smoke, throwing his swords at his rival. The man deflected the incoming weapons, but it left him open for Haruto's quick attack as he seized the enemy's own dagger and drove it into his chest. With that, the remaining thugs hesitated to advance, and their leader wet his pants in fear. Haruto removed his glove and set it on fire, then ordered the prisoners to be freed, a command the bandit leader obeyed immediately. Without delay, Haruto surprised Aki and Masato by speaking to them in Japanese. He promised to explain everything later, but first needed to know if any other people had been captured along with them. Masato mentioned that they had a friend in another cart, so Haruto made his way there and broke the lock using a special technique. Upon looking inside, he was shocked to find that the prisoner was none other than Ayase Miharu. Afterwards, he led the three of them back, while telepathically asking Aisha to meet up with him before sunset. Aisha responded that she would bring Celia with her. Speaking of the sunset, Miharu paused for a moment to admire it and then asked Haruto if they could talk. She thanked him for saving her and then asked the hero's name. The boy stammered as he replied that he was currently in the middle of a situation and was being called Haruto for now. Miharu and Aki were left speechless at the sound of that name, while the boy realized that the small girl was named Aki and remembered that Haruto had a sister 3 years younger than him, although he had never met her. To make sure, he asks if something's wrong because of the reactions, but Aki says it's nothing. Masato wonders why Haruto doesn't have a last name before introducing himself as Sendo Masato, Aki's younger brother. With that, the hero reflects that Amakawa Haruto didn't have a younger brother and Masato didn't have the Amakawa last name either. So maybe Haruto's mother remarried and had a child with another man. With that in mind, he asks Aki for her last name and she says it's also Sendo. With that, Haruto promises to explain why he doesn't have a last name as soon as they get somewhere more comfortable. Without wasting time, he finds a suitable place and uses his ability, Undo, raising a huge stone from the ground that has a home inside it. At that moment, Aisha arrives with Celia, speaking in the language of this world, Australian. Celia is happy to see her friend again, so Haruto introduces the inhabitants of Earth and then shares that Celia Claire was once his teacher. After the introductions, Aisha kisses her friend on the forehead, provoking a magical reaction. Then she repeats the process with Miharu, creating a temporary connection between the two who were kissed. This allows them to understand each other's language. Haruto didn't know Aisha could do that, so she explains that it's only possible because he understands both languages, otherwise she wouldn't be able to do it. With that said, she confesses her stomach is growling, so the host invites everyone inside the stone. Once inside, the homeowner offers a bath to anyone who wants one. As Masato celebrates this opportunity, his sister calls him lazy, and everyone laughs. When the girls gather for the bath, Miharu learns that Haruto's real name is Ryo, and that Aisha is a spirit who made a pact with him. Celia was the one who told her this, but since she also just met Aisha today, she doesn't know many more details. Aki approaches to learn more about the conversation, and Miharu explains that Aisha isn't human, but rather a spirit of nature. After the bath, it's time for everyone to eat, and Masato asks if they're basically in a fantasy RPG world. Haruto responds that he didn't play many games like that in his past life, so he's not sure. But it seems something like that, although it's different from a game because there's no reset button. Since that's the case, the boy asks if things would have gone badly for them if Haruto hadn't shown up, and Haruto tells him that they all would become slaves. Celia then arrives, thanking the host for offering such a wonderful bath, and when Haruto notices she's wearing completely different clothes, she explains that Aki lent them to her because, according to Aki, it would be weird to wear a wedding dress again after a bath. Speaking of which, thinking that the newly arrived group doesn't have any other clothes, Ryo decides to buy some essentials tomorrow. Miharu remembers that they don't have any money, but Ryo offers to cover whatever's needed. Celia asks where the shopping will take place, and he thinks Amand would be a good spot. Celia is pleased with the idea and wonders if it would be possible to sell her wedding dress for money. Once again, Ryo assures them that they don't need to worry about money, and then invites everyone to eat. Seeing the table full of food, Celia asks if Ryo prepared everything, which he confirms. During a meal, Ryo learns that the group was brought here by a phenomenon caused by summoning magic. Miharu wants to know if it's possible to return to Earth, but Haruto admits he doesn't have an answer for that because this situation is very different from his own rebirth in this world. Aki mentions that Haruto died in a traffic accident when he was a university student, so she asks if those memories came back to him when he was a child in this world. Ryo confirms they did, and that's why he believes his experience is important for the newcomers. Celia reflects on everything and concludes that the 6 pillars of light they saw along with the events of this year, the year 1000 of the Sacred Era, might be connected to the legend of the 6 wise gods. To that, Ryo says that 1,000 years after the Divine Demon War, 6 sacred stones will shine in different colors and pillars of light will rise to the sky. Then heroes clad in powerful divine robes will return from outside Strahl, and in place of the 6 wise gods, they will lead all of humanity. Still, Ryo can't imagine that these are the heroes mentioned in the legend, and Celia agrees. By the way, Miharu remembers that they were with other people when they came to this world, Statsuki and Takahisa, so maybe they're here too. Ryo isn't sure but considers it a possibility. Miharu shows great concern about this because she and her friends were saved by Ryo, but the others might not have been so lucky, especially in a completely foreign and hostile place. As the conversation winds down, Aisha yawns in the middle of the table, gets up, and pulls Ryo toward the bedroom because she's sleepy and needs her human pillow to make up for the long day. Ryo asks for just a minute, but Aisha can't wait any longer since she used up a lot of her power today. As soon as she says that, she collapses onto her companion's chest, though still managing to stand. Celia loses her composure at the scene, interpreting it as crossing some kind of boundary, but the spirit explains she's just recharging and that she always sleeps with Haruto. Seeing her teacher's total meltdown, Ryo explains there's a good reason for it. Visibly flustered, Celia shouts that he hasn't even bathed yet, while Miharu awkwardly raises her hand, offering to clear the table. Likewise, the siblings join in to avoid watching the scene any longer. After that, Ryo escorts Celia to her room and then returns to his own. Now alone, the boy thinks to himself that he never imagined he would meet Miharu again in this world, and he wonders what she would do if she found out he had the old memories of Haruto. However, he quickly concludes that he is no longer Haruto. He has his own life as Ryo. A long time ago, he decided to get his hands dirty to seek revenge on that man, and Amakawa Haruto is already dead. Just then, Celia knocks on her student's door, wanting to chat with him. So he serves tea to his teacher, something that hadn't happened in quite some time. Getting straight to the point and taking advantage of the fact that no one else was around, Celia wants to know where Haruto found Ayase, as well as what this past life talk is all about. After saying all this, she realizes she might have crossed a line and apologizes, but Ryo answers one question at a time. First, he explains that he has memories of a past life, and that person came from the same world as Miharu and the others. That's why he understands Japanese. On that note, he recalls the moment when his teacher first met him in the slums. Ryo had recovered the memories of his past life shortly before that, and the name of that person was Haruto. That's when Celia realizes why he chose Haruto as his pseudonym. In those memories, Ryo was 20 years old, older than Celia. By the way, she comments that the young boy always seems strangely mature for someone his age and thanks him for kidnapping her, as it allowed her to be with him. The girl feels relieved for that reason, although she's still worried about her father. She at least wanted to let him know she's okay. Ryo suggests she write a letter, and when she gets excited by the idea, he assures her that tomorrow they'll go buy stationery at the Rika Guild. Meanwhile, in Beltran, the capital of the Beltran Kingdom, Charles is informed by Reese that recent events have been a disaster. No one could have predicted his wife would be kidnapped. In response, Charles says the culprit has already been punished, and according to reports, after being struck by Alfred's attack, there was no trace left of him. However, Charles still has no clue about Celia's whereabouts. At the moment, the capital's borders are sealed to allow a thorough search across the territory. Upon hearing this, Reese analyzes that the boy and the spirit probably hid Celia's location, which is quite a bold move on their part. Charles adds that a hero has descended into the kingdom, and his own father has taken custody of him. Reese hopes that the hero will become a loyal ally to the kingdom of Beltram, but confesses he was hoping the kingdom had secured another sacred stone. To that, Charles replies that the stone is with Princess Flora and Duke Huguenot, and by now they're likely welcoming the hero. It's a troublesome situation as they might be considered traitors for aligning with the kingdom of Galark. Speaking of that kingdom, Reese notes that among the guests was Liselot Krisha from the Rika Merchants Guild, a very talented woman. The issue for the other man is that she's only 15, but Reese disagrees, saying that Liselot and the Rika Guild are as much of a menace as Duke Huguenot's faction. If measures aren't taken soon, something bad could happen. In Rodania, the capital of Rodan, a girl named Rona serves food to a young man. He asks her to sit down for a bit, as he doesn't like seeing her standing, so Rona politely accepts the invitation. Another noble admits that he never thought he would be able to invite a legendary hero into his home, which is a great honor. So if the young man wants anything, he just needs to say so. Hearing this, the boy finds it amusing to be called a legendary hero, because these people seem to think that internet-published novels reflect reality. A few days ago, this young man was resting peacefully in bed until he was suddenly flung into a new fantasy world. Thrown onto a strange grassy field, he stands up and notices dozens of soldiers surrounding him, so he panics trying to figure out where he is. Flora Beltram introduces herself as the second princess of Beltram, while a man says he is Duke Gustav Huguenot, the princess's guardian. The boy, who ended up in this world by pure chance, realizes that these nobles' arrival seems like something straight out of an Isekai summoning story, and when Flora mistakes him for a hero, he becomes certain of it. According to the prophecy left by the six wise gods, 1,000 years after the foundation of the sacred era, heroes will appear wherever the sacred stones are. Flora believes the katana in his hand is a clear sign that he's a hero. Without even realizing it, the boy notices he's holding a beautiful sword, which stirs his geeky heart. Soon, he's feeling full of swagger and claims to understand the situation. Inside, though, he thinks this whole story is pretty weak, especially since the people of this world somehow understand Japanese. Then Flora asks the name of the summoned hero, and he replies that it's Sakata Hiroki. Back in the present moment, he's sitting at a table full of food, but has no idea what this meeting is really about. Whatever it is, he plans to play it cool and act like he's above the others. To be honest, he admits that all this hero talk is making him a bit confused, so he asks if it was the princess's sacred stone that brought him here. Flora thinks so, and Sakata assumes that if he was brought here, he can probably go back. Regarding that, the princess also finds it odd, as a hero isn't supposed to even mention that. Sakata begins to believe that he was kidnapped since he had his own life in his original world and was brought here against his will. The girl apologizes, saying that recent events have left her lost too, and Sakata replies that he's not blaming anyone, but he's clearly the one in the toughest spot here. Guster's son, Stuart, comments that the hero is being disrespectful to Her Highness, so his father scolds him not to interfere. Afterward, the Duke apologizes for the boy's rudeness and promises to explain everything about his current situation. For his part, Sakata is now genuinely interested in the matter. In the meantime, Ryo steps out of his hidden cave to go shopping with Celia and Miharu. Miharu asks the two siblings to take care of everything properly while they're out, and Ryo explains that there's a barrier around the house, but the siblings still shouldn't try to leave. Suddenly, Ayase appears and picks up Miharu in her arms, flying ahead through the sky. The siblings watch in awe as Ryo wonders if he could carry Miharu the same way. Soon enough, all four of them are soaring through the sky, and Miharu is mesmerized by the view from above. Celia asks Ayase how much she knows about Ryo, and she replies that she knows almost everything, as Haruto's memories flow to her through their pact. In other words, Ayase and Ryo share these memories, their consciousness is deeply connected, which is the nature of a spirit pact given how closely spirits are bound. With that, Celia admits feeling a bit uneasy about Ayase knowing a side of Ryo that she doesn't, but the spirit reassures her, explaining that Haruto is different now, slowly learning to trust others. She adds that if Haruto now knows good people, it's thanks to Celia, because when Haruto was all alone, Celia was the first to reach out to him. When they arrive, Ryo explains to Miharu why she needs to call Celia by the name Cecilia. It's also time for everyone to change their hair color before entering the city to avoid any issues. With that done, they enter Amand, the merchant city of the Kingdom of Galark. At one point, Miharu asks why there's such a long line in the street, and Ryo explains it's for a menju shop, a local specialty. The Rika Guild offers a variety of foods and pastries that resemble those from Earth. Next, the group arrives at the Rika Guild, where they are greeted by Chloe, who is in charge of attending to visitors that day. Ryo asks Chloe to take care of his friends while he goes off for about an hour, and Celia takes the opportunity to try on some clothes upstairs. While Ryo deals with some matters, the girls spend time at the Merchant Guild, and Celia encourages Miharu to try on some clothes too, though the girl is extremely shy. Still, she agrees, and despite her embarrassment, she ends up trying on some outfits along with the others. Meanwhile, Ryo hasn't found any useful leads, and realizing things are moving fast, he sees no other options. Chloe asks if Celia needs anything else, and she replies that she'd like to check out some stationery items. Ryo arrives and asks Miharu if she found anything she'd like to buy, and he suddenly notices she's holding a bra in her hand. He quickly turns around and apologizes. In any case, he advises her to take it easy with the shopping and not worry about him. After saying that, Ryo leaves, but Miharu asks him to try on an outfit she set aside for him. When he does, he realizes how perfectly it suits him, and all the girls agree. Seeing this, Ryo decides to take the outfit as he's running out of options in his wardrobe, and Chloe mentions a promotion on men's clothing. If he buys another item, he gets a discount. Ryo compliments the Rika Guild's selling skills, and Celia asks if she can pick out the next outfit for him. Later, back at the guest house, Liselot is informed by Aria that it'll take some time before the borders reopen. Liselot believes Beltrum wants to control the flow of information on this matter. Because of this, she can't conduct business, essentially leaving her stuck there. Aria suggests that her mistress take this time to relax and enjoy herself, and the young lady likes the idea. After all, Duke Arbor's reputation has been ruined, which is quite entertaining for the Kingdom of Galark and worthy of celebration. On that note, Aria expresses sympathy for the Duke's fiancée Celia, as she's an old friend of hers. Aria suspects that someone hostile to Duke Arbor's family is behind what happened, while the blue-haired girl points out that amidst the chaos, heroes have emerged, and one has likely been summoned to the Kingdom of Galark, which would be a great thing. Liselot concludes by saying she needs to hurry and return as soon as possible. Back at Ryo's house, the girls brought back an endless amount of clothes that Celia and Miharu picked out. They truly hope Ryo likes all of them, and the siblings try on a few as well. In the midst of this, Ryo laments that he couldn't find any specific information about Satsuki or Takahisa, but it seems true that the heroes have arrived, just as the legend of the 6 wise gods foretold. Ryo believes that the 3 Japanese people in this house were brought here for that reason, along with Takahisa and Satsuki, who may have come as heroes. In the prophecy, there are 6 heroes, and perhaps those 2 are among them. Seeing that their older brother may be in this world, Aki and Masato express their intention to search for him. Ryo understands their concern, but stresses that they need to learn the language and customs of this world before venturing out. Speaking of leaving, Ryo mentions knowing some trustworthy people, the spirit people, so he thinks they could offer valuable advice. Ayase, feeling tired of everything, only wants to eat, and Ryo agrees that it's time to prepare some food. Miharu offers to help, so Ryo takes the opportunity to announce that they'll be having Japanese food tonight. Watching the two cooks, Masato recalls how Miharu never feels comfortable around men, but she doesn't seem to mind Haruto. Lastly, Celia joins in, eager to learn how to cook, and it doesn't take long for the kitchen team to prepare a wonderful meal. The next day, Haruto bids farewell to his friends who wish him good luck on his journey. Masato promises that by the time Haruto returns, he'll be fluent in Australian, and after receiving this responsibility from their leader, Ayase assures everyone that she will take care of them. Then the protagonist activates his teleportation and leaves. Upon arriving at the spirit village, he runs into Latifa, an old friend who welcomes him with great excitement. Likewise, other friends had sensed a distortion in the nearby magical energy and came to see if it was Ryo's arrival. Alma mentions that Sarah ran ahead to get there first, but Sarah retorts that it was the short one who tried to overtake everyone to be the first. Afterward, Ryo explains that he came to consult with the elders about something, and Sarah promises to inform them immediately. In a meeting with the village leaders, he informs them that the surge of Odd and mana that came from the Straw region could have been the result of the 6 pillars of light he saw, as these pillars were a type of space-time magic that may have been used to summon people from another world. Around Straw, there are rumors that the 6 heroes of the Divine Demon War have appeared, and Ryo believes in this theory because he himself took in 2 girls and a boy who came from outside this world, though he doesn't think they are the exact heroes mentioned, as they were found in a place with no connection to the Pillars of Light. However, they were with 2 other people before being teleported, and they claim to have seen these 2 being taken by a rift in space. In other words, it's possible that this pair was summoned as the heroes, although the 3 Ryo took in may have been involved in this summoning process. Soldier asks if the young man has managed to communicate with beings from another world, and he responds that he knows their language because he lived in that world in his previous life. With that said, the elders take in the information and decide to discuss the matter later, so Ryo takes the opportunity to ask a favor. Ursula promises to do everything in her power to fulfill her companion's wish, so he asks if the 3 he mentioned, along with 1 more person, could stay in the village for a short time, as he needs to find clues on how to send them back to their own world. But it's hard for him to act while having to protect everyone. Besides, it's obvious that Ryo can't compare to the inhabitants of the spirit village in terms of knowledge about space-time magic. Nevertheless, Ursula emphasizes that they have no idea what kind of magic allows beings to cross worlds, while Dominic wants to know who this 4th person Ryo mentioned is. The young man explains that she is a teacher to whom he owes a great deal, and who was forced into a political marriage against her will. Ryo rescued her on the day of the wedding and now cannot simply ignore her situation. Upon hearing this, Dominic laughs heartily and calls Ryo a charmer, but promises to take care of these people. Since neither Ursula nor Seldra objects, Ryo's wish will be granted, but Seldra warns that when these 4 finally return to the Straw region, Ryo must solemnly swear that none of them will reveal any information about the village, as it must remain a secret. With that, Ryo makes the promise and informs them that he will leave tomorrow and bring his friends. That night, the protagonist apologizes to Latifa for having talked about his past life without her permission, but explains that if he hadn't, he wouldn't have been able to explain everything he needed to the elders. Since the topic came up, Latifa asks if she should also talk about her past, but Ryo makes it clear that she doesn't have to feel pressured to tell anyone anything unless she wants to. Curious, she asks if the people who were teleported to this world are Japanese, and when Ryo confirms this, she wonders if he told them that he was also Japanese. The boy replies that he did, as otherwise they would have eventually asked how he understood the language. Downcast, Latifa remembers that this was a secret between the 2 of them and soon becomes irritated when she sees the boy laughing at her behavior. However, he explains that he just found her way of expressing herself adorably funny. Reflecting on it, he tells her that no matter how many others come from Japan besides them, she will always be special to him. He also recalls what he shared about his past life, that he was in love with his childhood friend and that he lived apart from his little sister after their parents divorced. One of the 3 people he took in is the person he loved throughout his life as Amakawa Haruto, and her name is Ayase Miharu. Another one is Sendo Aki, and they lived together for just over 3 years, but she was his younger sister. In any case, he hasn't told these people that he has Haruto's memories because they're likely emotionally unstable after appearing in another world, and now Ryo is no longer Haruto. For that reason, he asks Latifa not to tell him about his past life. In response, Latifa asks him to confess how he really feels about the whole situation, because only then can she make that promise. Ryo reinforces that he wants to keep his past life a secret between him and Latifa. and that while there may come a day when he reveals it to others, for now, he doesn't want that to happen. With that said, he gives his friend a hug. The next day, as Ryo bids farewell, his friends from the village ask when he'll return, and he hopes it'll be in 2 weeks. Latifa rests her head against his chest and asks him to be careful, to which he assures her that everything will be fine before departing for good. Meanwhile, in the capital, Beltrant Lisala had just finished briefing King Francois Gullark on the details of recent events in the capital. Although she had only just arrived, the king requested that she visit Duke Huguenot because the sacred stone in the possession of the kingdom of Gullark had summoned a young heroine. For this reason, they planned to invite ambassadors from neighboring kingdoms and hold a celebration to introduce this heroine. In addition to that, Francois wanted to extend an invitation to the heroes summoned by the kingdom of Beltram, and Liselot was tasked with delivering it personally to him, Sakata Hiroki. Liselot found the name strange, so the king explained that in Sakata's homeland it was customary to place the surname first. Somehow, the girl felt a nostalgic sensation upon hearing the name, although she couldn't pinpoint exactly why. Still curious, she asked the king the name of the heroine summoned by the kingdom of Gullark, and Francois revealed it to be Sumeraji Setsuki. Given how she too introduced herself with her family name first, it was likely that she came from the same land as Sakata Hiroki. With that in mind, the king thought it best for Liselot to meet the heroine and had left the envoy waiting in another room. Thus, he asked his daughter, Charlotte, to show her the way. The two made their way to Satsuki's chamber, where she greeted them eagerly, dressed in a splendid suit of armor. As night fell, a hooded man surrounded by revenants observed that the Rika Merchants Guild had a base of operations in the city. Having found a good supply of materials, he ordered his subordinates to locate someone in the nearby Aman forest, someone enveloped in a large amount of magic, and bring them to him alive by sunset the next day. All witnesses were to be killed. With this, the man expected to have all the puppets he needed, deciding to take advantage of this last opportunity to make some money and then lay low for a while. At dawn, Celia was studying Strolling with Masato, who was struggling with the language. However, accustomed to her profession as a teacher, she patiently answered all of his questions with generosity. In the kitchen while preparing a meal, Miharu wondered if Haruto would return soon, prompting Aki to complain that the girl had been talking about nothing else since the night before. Visibly stressed, the younger girl grumbled that she should be starting a new school term, beginning a new chapter in her life, but both Satsuki and her brother Takahisa had also disappeared, making everything harder. Aki's fear of never seeing her mother or friends again was very real and weighed heavily on her mind. Concerned, Miharu embraced her to offer some comfort. Aki asked if she was also worried, and Miharu admitted she was, but knowing Aki and Masato were there along with the friends she had made in this world made her feel more at ease. Moreover, she emphasized that Haruto was doing everything he could to help their situation, and there wasn't much they could do but trust that he would bring the answers they needed. With that in mind, Aki asked what Miharu thought of Haruto, since she typically didn't feel comfortable around men but seemed to act naturally when he was around. Miharu responded that Haruto was kind and reliable, and that his name reminded her of a childhood friend. Hearing this, Aki became furious, feeling that her friend still thought of that guy and saw it as an offense to Haruto. However, she quickly regained her composure, apologized for losing control, and went outside to cool off. Outside, Aki reflected that Miharu hadn't really done anything wrong, but she still wondered if the girl still loved Amakawa Haruto. Meanwhile, revenants began to approach the area where Ryo's friends were staying, which instantly alerted Aisha. Miharu came to talk to Aki, but the two noticed the approaching monsters. With unreal speed, a revenant lunged at the two humans but was stopped by Aisha's power, causing a shockwave that rattled the entire house, worrying Masato and Celia. The teacher told the boy to stay inside while she prepared to go out. Aisha surmised that these monsters had been drawn to the area by the magic of the barrier. Recalling Ryo's mission to protect the people in the house, she took full responsibility and resolved not to falter. Soon, another monster attacked her but was repelled by her power. However, a third undead creature managed to sneak up on the Japanese girls from behind. Celia arrived just in time to help, as Aisha couldn't manage on her own. The teacher summoned his shield to protect Miharu and Aki, while Aisha took charge of the remaining monsters. Ryo then arrived and joined in the defense of the house. He wanted to know if Aisha knew anything about these creatures, but she could only sense a similar monster-like energy from them and deduced that the darker one was the strongest. With that, Ryo said he would take on the darker one, leaving the rest to her. The strongest monster attempted to flee, but Ryo quickly cornered it, dodging its attacks. Based on his analysis, the monster was fast but always moved in straight lines. After knocking it to the ground and plunging his sword into its back, Ryo noted that its life force was unusually strong and found it strange how its mouth moved before it died. Shortly after, the most powerful revenant dropped a magic stone, confirming that it was indeed a monster. Meanwhile, Ishia had defeated the other two that had accompanied it. With that done, Ryo thanks Celia for her help, but he couldn't shake the image of the monster moving its mouth as if it had been pleading to be killed. Aki apologized, believing the whole ordeal was her fault for leaving the house, while Miharu took responsibility for saying something that had upset her friend. Unmoved by the emotional scene, Ryo casually commented that the food smelled delicious, lightening the mood once again. Everyone decided it was a good time for lunch, but before they sat down to eat, Ryo warned them that they would soon need to relocate. Meanwhile, amidst dozens of corpses of human puppets, the hooded man noted the absence of a group of revenants that hadn't returned, and so he planned to create more puppets to make up for his loss. Meanwhile, in the spirit village, Latifa talks to herself about Ryo. Soon, the person he loved in his past life, as well as his little sister from that past life, and the teacher to whom he owes a debt in this life, will come to this village. Ryo mentioned that she doesn't have to tell these people about herself, but knowing that they are important to the boy, Latifa considers being honest with them. Then Ryo's group arrives at the spirit village, and everyone is amazed by the speed of the teleportation and the beauty of the place they have reached. Latifa and her friends welcome the newcomers. The humans are struck by the appearance of the beast people, while the local inhabitants bow to Aisha after a long time without seeing her. Given this, Masato asks if Aisha is significant to these people, and Ryo explains that the spirit people regard the highest class of spirits that can materialize and take human form as divine. Upon hearing this, Miharu apologizes for treating the spirits so informally, but Aisha herself requests not to be treated formally. Meanwhile, Celia Claire introduces herself to Latifa after learning she is Ryo's younger sister and apologizes for her boldness, but she would love to touch the Beast Girl's tail and makes her request directly. As the Beast Girl agrees, the teacher wastes no time in fulfilling her wish. Aki comments that Celia seems to like furry things, so Latifa smiles and responds that this place might be heaven for her. Upon hearing this, the newcomers are surprised that this inhabitant spoke Japanese, so Latifa explains that, like Ryo, she has memories of her past life, which is why she offers to teach Straliano to the visitors. Ryo asks if the young Beast Girl is sure about this, and she replies that she had already decided this, and that her friends and the elders are aware of her decision. She made this decision knowing what it's like to feel insecure because you came from another world, and this would be a way to make the envoys feel more comfortable in a place they've never been before. Reminded of her challenging childhood in Straw, where she had serious difficulties adapting initially, Latifa highlights that she is Ryo's little sister and will always help when she can. Thus, Ryo thanks his sister for her efforts and admits that he is happy, which also delights the Beast Girl. Soon, the other inhabitants approach the humans and announce that they will help everyone get accustomed to village life. The one with white hair introduces herself as Sarah, while the green-haired one is Orphea and the redhead is Alma. All are very pleased to meet the visitors. Likewise, Aki states his name and his brothers, and Miharu introduces herself last. Upon hearing her name, Latifa realizes that this is the girl Ryo was in love with. Then, everyone is led to the village, where the people are waiting to receive the humans. However, Aki observes that the local inhabitants seem to be afraid of them, so Ryo explains that the people of this village usually keep their distance from humans, although there is quite a bit of curiosity about this race. A young beast girl approaches and touches Naru, who kneels to say, "Hi." The little girl then whispers something in Latifa's ear, who explains that the little one found the human's uniform quite different. Miharu worries about looking strange as she dressed more formally to be received by the elders, but Latifa tells her that the little girl loved her outfit. Reassured, the human comments that the child's ears are very cute, prompting her to smile and run back to her mother. Without delay, the beast people approach the strangers to establish initial contact, and indeed they create an instant connection with them, demonstrating their receptiveness. Amidst all this, Miharu notices that Latifa was looking at her face in a somewhat impressed manner, making the beast girl embarrassed upon realizing that she might have overstepped. Still embarrassed, she asks if she can call the human Miharu, and upon getting confirmation, soon Aki and Masato join the conversation to better mingle. Then the newly arrived humans are taken to a genuine feast displayed by the people. Masato cannot hide his excitement about the amount of food, although his sister asks him to show a bit more decorum. However, Latifa makes it clear that there's no need to worry about formalities at this welcome party. Shortly after, the elders arrive to meet the visitors. Silver states that Ishi's presence makes the spirit people very happy. Dominic gets too close to the children to observe, so Ursula asks her companion not to scare the kids with that stern face. With that said, everyone bursts into laughter. At that moment, Dryas expresses joy at the arrival of Ryo and Aisha, and all the village residents are enchanted with the presence of the entity. Until nightfall, residents and visitors continue drinking, eating, and celebrating this wonderful meeting. To Masato's surprise, the locals prepared a batch of inarazushi, so he calls his sister to come eat. Aki can't believe that they prepared this dish typical of Japanese cuisine, but Latifa explains that she cooked this portion personally so that the Japanese would feel more at home. Thus, they gather at a table to relive the taste of this food while Latifa observes Ryo being well treated by everyone. About this, Aki highlights that everyone really likes Haruto, and that he is a great older brother, and Latifa responds that she is proud to call him her big brother. With that, Aki bows her head and confesses that she feels envious. Internally, she reflects that she also wants to see her brother soon and wonders where he could be at that moment. After pondering this, she assures Latifa that she will study the language of this world very well. After the party, humans are taken to their new home while they stay in the village, and everyone is amazed at the size of that residence. The Beast Women explain that they can use the outdoor bath and then rest well, and Misato gets excited about this bath. However, he ends up being left out after losing at rock, paper, scissors, while all the girls join in the water. With that, Masato regrets not having asked Haruto to play in his place, for surely the guy would have won. Ryo isn't so sure about that, so the child wants to put what he's saying to the test by challenging him to a round. However, he chose rock while Ryo chose scissors. In the bath, Miharu gazes at the stars visible in the sky, while Aki acknowledges that they have indeed arrived in a remarkable place but fears they may never return home. At that moment, Miharu even replies that they will return someday, but Aki's words instantly dampen the mood. Masato wants to know why Haruto is so strong no matter the situation, but the elder explains it's not quite like that. While having a brief flashback, he states he has something he must do, but to succeed, he needs to become stronger. Hearing this, Masato confesses he also needs to get stronger to protect Miharu and Aki. At that moment, Latifa arrives and announces that the bath is ready, and then Ryo calls the little boy to join him. Celia finds a letter on the table upon returning from the water. The next morning, she finds Ryo training with his sword in the forest and takes the opportunity to apologize for making her wait so long, but at least his friends are quickly getting used to the village. Therefore, he announces he will deliver the letter to Celia's parents. Moved, the teacher asks if the young man isn't overburdened as he is working hard to return Miharu and the others to their world of origin. Moreover, he had intended to erect a tombstone for his parents, but having to save Celia seems to have delayed all his plans. For this reason, she says Ryo no longer needs to do anything for her. Regarding this, the man admits he has things to do, but affirms that the teacher is not hindering him at all, as at that moment all he wanted was to save her, just as he deeply wishes to send the three back home. Then, after delivering Celia's letter, he plans to go to Rodania to gather information about the heroes. With that, Celia thanks him and asks to be notified if her friend needs anything. After all, she still has the most mana of any mage in the kingdom of Beltrum. No matter what happens, she will always stand by Ryo. After this conversation, she stores her letter and prepares for the journey alongside Ryo and Asia. The Beast Girls gather to bid farewell to their friends and assure that they will take care of the humans who stayed. Indeed, Miharu has a gift for the travelers, a basket filled with food to nourish them during their journey. Ryo comments that it must have been a lot of work to prepare all this food, but she insists that it's the least she can do in light of everything the young man has done to help them, and that one day she will repay this debt of gratitude. Then Ryo states that this food is more than enough. Sarah and Alma add fuel to the fire, highlighting that Miharu went to great lengths to prepare all this food as if she were a good wife, while Masato ensures he will work hard while Ryo is away. With that said, the trio embarks on their journey while Latifa expresses her desire to make the humans fluent in Stralianum to surprise Ryo, Ishia, and Celia. Meanwhile, in Rodania, Liselot asks Takata Hiroki to attend the Kingdom of Galark's party. While listening to her, Hiroki notes that everything about this girl is extremely beautiful, whether her appearance or even her voice. Moreover, he knows that Flora and Rona are already at a high level, but this situation with a noble girl from a neighboring kingdom caught the hero off guard, as after everything that happened, he feels that the main character has finally appeared. Thus, he crosses his arms and states that he will attend the party but wants to know if Liselot will be there. As she confirms that's the plan, he reaffirms his presence, and she expresses her excitement to see the hero of Beltrum there and leaves Hiroki head over heels in love. As night falls, Asia and the others arrive in Clea, the capital of the lands of Count Clare, where Celia was born and raised. According to her, there is a secret passage in the garden that connects to the main house, and as only her family knows about it, Celia plans to leave the letter there and return. Deciding this, they venture into the mansion's garden and try to stay out of the guard's sight. To avoid being seen, Ryo announces they should use spiritual arts to hide from that point forward, a task Ishii takes on. Having done so, they reach the fountain in the center of the garden, where Celia opens the entrance to the secret passage before the guards could appear. Next, they reach the underground passage and Celia picks up a lantern that emits a green glow. At the same time, a sphere glows in the same color in the office of Roland Clare, Celia's father and the Count of the region. At that moment, he opens the passage from inside his office, surprised that someone outside had entered. There, the girl leaves the letter on a desk while her father shouts her name, imagining it could be her. Nearly crying, she tries to move forward despite the overwhelming emotion. In the letter, she apologizes to her parents for causing so much worry, but asks them to stay calm as she is currently living a peaceful life alongside people she trusts. She knows she disappointed her parents by abandoning her marriage to the Duke Arbor family, but made it clear that she's well and will one day return to Clea to explain everything. But until then, she wishes her parents to take care of their health. In the end, she thanks them for their unwavering love. After reading the letter, as Rio and the others are about to leave the mansion, Roland rushes outside and shouts for Celia. With no hope of finding her at that moment, he reflects that the girl hasn't disappointed him and promises that one day he will see his beloved daughter again. Away from there, Rio asks if Celia really doesn't want to see her father, and she explains that it's better this way for now. In any case, the boy assures that one day they will return and everything will be alright. So the girl wipes away her tears and believes that it really will happen.